Fantasy Football Factory Week 9. You got the King of the South. Is that wrong?
I'm saying it's crazy. How's it week 9 already? Where'd the time go?
Yeah, we got the King of the South, Mintzy, Moody on the sticks. We are brought to you, as always, by Draftkings. If you want to up your game day experience, my partners at Draftkings have a brand new way to play daily fantasy with the Pick 6 app. All new customers who play just $5 are going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Just download the Draftkings Pick 6 app now. Use code FANTASY, FANTASY. It's super easy. Just pick at least 2 players. Choose if they'll have more or less than a certain set. More or less than 1.5 passing touchdowns. More or less than 50.5 receiving yards. More or less than half an interception thrown. Super easy. Just lock them in and compete against others for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use code FANTASY. Only the DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. Mintzy, we had quite a week of fantasy. I think obviously, Jane Daniels, Hail Mary, all that stuff. That's great. But for fantasy, we got to talk about Jameis Winston, who really had a great game fantasy-wise and also led the Browns to a huge divisional win over the Ravens. What do you think about my former guy, Jameis Winston? 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 115.3 quarterback rating.
I think a lot of things. First of all, what the hell are the New Orleans Saints doing, watching what's going on right now with that and him being in Cleveland the last couple of years. But no, you said it. You said Jameis, you said he's going to go off his, I actually, shout out Stephen Cheah, influenced it. I hit a 19-1 parlay because of when you started talking about the Jameis thing and the Ravens passed he was bad. I did Jameis over 300 and Njoku anytime touchdown and the over in the game at 19-1. So thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Stephen Cheah. You influenced that. But, dude, Jameis was slinging it. Look. Yeah, there are some balls that might go to the other team. That, they could have had a few picks, but that's part of the Jameis experience. You're going to see some touchdowns, some interceptions, and a lot of yardage. And immediately upgrading. Look, David Njoku, big game. Now Jerry Jeudy look good. Elijah Moore even might have value now with Amari
Tillman.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden the upgrade in the Cleveland passing game. And, dude, it looked like a new energy in Cleveland just having Deshaun Watson not starting.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But Jameis certainly, he's patiently waited his turn. Obviously, he started in New Orleans for a bit, had some good success, had the injury, came back the next year, played a little bit, injured again. So it's good to see him healthy and then playing. And, this is his brand of football. He's going to sling the rock. He's going to have some really good games. He's going to have some bad games for sure. But from a fantasy perspective, interceptions are worth what they're worth. Either, -1, -2 in your league, whatever your format is. That's not a backbreaker. So, Jameis Winston, we'll talk about where he's priced this week. Still potential value. In fairness, he did get a Ravens defense that was very good against the run and allowed the most passing yards in the NFL. Things could be a bit different this week, but it's good to see him healthy and slinging that thing.
Yeah, Cleveland might have some gambling value going forward because Jameis, all the teammates like him, and they're going to play hard for him.
Yeah, right now David Njoku is the 3rd highest priced tight end at $5,500. So, I think he certainly helps the value of some guys. In almost everyone who cashed serious money this past weekend, Cedric Tillman was in their lineup. So, definitely some value to be had with Jameis as your quarterback. Let's talk about a quarterback that went down that could have huge ramifications in the fantasy community. That's Jordan Love. Looks like probably a short-term thing. We're taping this a little bit early this week. We're taping it on Tuesday. They're playing Detroit this week. They have a bye next week. It could be a 2-week thing. But obviously a huge game this weekend against Detroit if he does indeed miss it. How does this affect the stock of Packers fantasy players? Because we saw Malik Willis come in, played well. Not necessarily from a fantasy perspective, but Josh Jacobs had a great game, obviously. What does this do in your mind to Jacobs and also the receivers?
Man, it hurts. Obviously, it hurts the receivers a ton. But what's interesting, so they got Detroit at home. Detroit has a really good run defense, and their pass defense is kind of more their weakness. Well, when Malik Willis is in there, you're going to have him running more. You got to think Green Bay's going to focus more on the run. Remember when they ran for like over 200 yards with Willis in the first half against the Colts a few weeks ago. But, Willis has looked better, a lot better throwing the ball for Green Bay than he ever did for Tennessee. But having said that, man, my thing is I just don't see how this affects the Green Bay receivers well. Kraft has been a breakout tight end. Probably hurts him some. Moody's been riding the Romeo Dobbs train hard. I just feel like you have to downgrade all those guys. But I think the biggest thing you said is like, look, if you're Green Bay, you got a bye week next week. Yeah, it sucks to not have them this week, but because you got the bye week next week, you give Love the 2 weeks and you do the best you can as a home dog against Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Moody, how do you think this affects your guy Romeo Doubs?
Oh, this hurts everybody in the Packers offense without question. Everyone has to be downgraded. I think Josh Jacobs, even though he's going to get a lot of carries, I think he needs to be downgraded just a little bit. Teams are going to start to stack the box, and I think it's going to downgrade everyone. Romeo Doubs had like 3 catches for 79 yards whenever Jordan Love was in there. He didn't have a single catch after Love left the game. So this is a big downgrade for everyone. I've been huge on the Packers train this season. I think this is bad news for them. Obviously, if they get him back in a couple weeks, they'll be okay in the long run. But in the short term, this is bad news for everyone from a fantasy perspective for the Packers.
Yeah, I was watching that game pretty closely in my big brain parlay. I had Jordan Love to throw 2+ passing touchdowns, which against the Jaguars everybody does. But as soon as he had the first, he was on the run and throwing, and he kind of landed awkwardly on what it looked like to be his right knee. He was immobile after that. Like, he was in the game and he was still playing, but he could not move. There was one play where I think he rolled out to the right a little bit, and Jordan Love's not a big running quarterback, but there was plenty of room in front of him, and you could tell he was not trying to cross the line of scrimmage. Like, he just kind of threw it away. It was ugly. So if he does play, the line on that the total on that game is 48.5, which is one of the higher ones of the Sunday. It's the second highest right now, behind just Dallas and Atlanta. It'll be interesting to see what that total end line moves to. Right now we have Detroit being 3.5-point favorites. I'm interested to see what his schedule looks like this week, if he is practicing, and how he does look in practice, because Sunday it looked bad. I'm a big rider bets till the end, like never call him dead. As soon as I saw him running around, I was like, this is completely dead. I tried to bet his live rushing under 4.5 yards, and it was not happening. One more injury we should talk about. Stephon Diggs, who destroyed Jerry's 10K bonus parlay on Sunday with what looks like to be an ACL. It looks like he's going to be out for a significant time, potentially rest of the year. They got Nico Collins, who's going to be back fairly soon. But Tank Dell, what does this do to his stock? And also Joe Mixon. Mintzy.
Man, I'm real worried. Stroud's already been struggling a little bit this year.
Yeah.
The yardage, I know you talked a lot about the 100-yard difference in the home road splits, but man, kind of been waiting on him to get untracked all year, and it hadn't really happened. They've been doing, just enough to win. I mean, they're 6-2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they're winning games, but they're running the ball. They're winning with defense. They've got we're not for fantasy. It's not on the daily fantasy because they play Thursday night at the Jets. But I think you're seeing Houston run the ball and play defense and just trying to get by. Tank Dell, he's going to be the number 1 guy now, so maybe he gets more targets, but defense is key on him. That Hutchinson dude might be a sneaky pickup. Number 19 for them. He's looked okay catching the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't. It's if you have if you drafted C.J. Stroud this year, you're really, really disappointed after the year he had last year.
I mean, so last year I think, off the top of that, I feel like he was like 23 touchdowns, 4 picks, something like that.
I think it was 5, but yeah.
Okay, but yeah, like you're drafted. C.J. Stroud, I think, is a great prospect from a fantasy perspective. I mean, 23-5, like that's a little better than Derek Carr. Like that, I'm not saying like he's a bad player. He's a very, very good player. I would say he's an elite quarterback. But from a fantasy perspective, he didn't set the world on fire last year. He was very good for a rookie quarterback, but he's not QB, top 5 guy. Is he a QB1? Probably like a bottom tier 1, but
the thing with him, he doesn't run. So that's a big thing. But but before the year, when you looked at having Nico and Tank Dell and Diggs, you could see that offense having some firepower.
Yeah.
And now, you're without 2 of those 3 guys, and it just hadn't gone that way. So, yeah, I just downgrading him. But, ultimately the NFL, we're playing fantasy football, but they're 6-2. So they're definitely doing something right, regardless if his stats aren't that good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's
So I actually, real quick, I wanted to talk about C.J. Stroud. So prior to the season, I traded Justin Herbert and Calvin Ridley in my Dynasty League for Stroud because of all those weapons that Mintzy just mentioned. And I thought it was a home run at the time, but now it's like that. I think I may have lost that trade in the short term. I think in the long term, it'll be fine. But there's no doubt that I'm a little bit worried about C.J. Stroud, and I'm thinking about starting Bo Nix over C.J. Stroud for the first time this season. this week because, Knicks will be against Baltimore. They've been giving up points. I'm in a spot where I don't really trust CJ Stroud to go out there and light it up from a fantasy perspective. Still going to be fine. I think in real life, they're going to, still be competitive. But he does get Nico Collins back in week 10. So that'll kind of open things back up because Collins was incredible. He was the number one wide receiver before he went down. So I'm not like sounding the alarms for the long term, but I am a little bit worried for this week in particular.
And where is Houston playing? On the road.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud, look for those passing numbers to be a bit lower.
I feel like we've got potential for a real ugly Thursday night game, Texans and Jets. Totals like Jets are 2-point favorite, 42. I think this is feels like it could be ugly.
Yeah, I mean they can run the Jets. I said this on the rundown last night. The Jets are soft. Like the defensive line, they have very good players, but they're a soft team. I think Joe Mixon's gonna have a field day on Thursday night. But let's talk about the classic, the DFS Sunday slate, where we see guys priced out as. Let's start with the quarterback market. Lamar Jackson, top of the market, $8,000. Jalen Hurts, $7,800. Josh Allen, $7,700. Jaden Daniels, Mr. Hail Mary, $7,500. Then Jordan Love right now. We'll see what his status is, $7,000, and it falls down after that. We can get it all the way down to Jacoby Brissett at $5,000. We'll see if he plays this week. It looked like Drake May exited the game with a concussion, so I would expect him to miss this week. But looks like that's your bottom of the market. Quarterback, Jameis Winston checking in at $5,400. Mintzy, who do you like here?
Dak Prescott, $6,300. Too low at Atlanta. Dome game, Atlanta. We saw Baker Mayfield without his top two receivers, still threw for over 330 yards last week. These Atlanta games have been flying over the total lately. I like Dak, and I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. So I think at 6,300, the value's too good there.
Yeah, it's interesting. That is the highest point total of the week by far, 52.5. It is on the road. Dak doesn't play generally as well on the road as he does in Jerry World. But, yeah, Kirk Cousins also in there at $6,400. If you have the money, I think Joe Burrow is a decent option. Playing the Raiders, they should win this pretty handily. But again, they don't really run the ball very well. I think this is a spot where you could see Joe Burrow go off $6,900. I don't hate that. He is the sixth most expensive quarterback. Also, I don't mind Caleb Williams, $6,100. I know, I think we were talking in pre-show how this could be a potential hangover for the Bears. I think this could be a quick get-right spot for the Bears. Their offense did look much better in that fourth quarter, and overall, week over week, Caleb Williams has been getting a lot better. He gets an Arizona pass defense that is bottom 10 in passing yards allowed, so I think Caleb Williams, who has been running a bit more too, is a decent option at quarterback. Moody, who do you like for the quarterback position?
So at first I liked Dak as well, but I'm going to go somewhere else, and that's Caleb Williams at $6,100. He's only $200, but he gets an Arizona defense that has been giving it up this season. I think this is a really good spot for Caleb Williams. I know he didn't play very well last week either from a fantasy perspective either, so I don't think a lot of people will be on him. I think Caleb Williams is a very good bet this week against Arizona, and I'm like 99% positive I'm going to go Caleb over Dak just to save a couple bucks because the way my lineup's breaking down, I need to save just $100 or $200. So I think I'm on Caleb Williams at $6,100 against Arizona.
Me and Moody thinking the same way. Caleb Williams, I like that. All right, running backs. We got Derrick Henry top of the market, $8,300. Saquon Barkley, $82,000. Kyren Williams, $8,000. Alvin Kamara with the broken hand, $7,800. Although he did have a good game last week. Jahmyr Gibbs, $7,600. Bijan, $74,000. Kenneth Walker III, $73,000. James Cook, $7,200. J.K. Dobbins, $7,000. It falls off after that. You can get it all the way down. Jaleel McLaughlin, I feel like, is playable if you need a value at $4,700 in a game. They should be trailing by quite a bit. Mintzy, who do you like in the running back market?
I think we're at a point where whoever's playing the Dallas Cowboys I want because of how bad their run defense is. I mean, it is rough this year. I mean, we saw Garendo come in there and had over 100 yards. On Sunday, remember Detroit could have run for 300 or 400 yards in that game a couple weeks ago. So I'm going with Bijan Robinson as my number one guy at 7,300, I believe.
Yep.
I just this Dallas run defense, it's every week. It's horrible, and I think there's going to be a lot of points in this Atlanta-Dallas game, as we said. So that's how I'm rolling as my top guy.
Yeah, a couple guys I like. Devon Achane. So with Tua back, he's getting the ball, and then, in DFS you get a full point per reception. He's getting a ton of catches, a ton of receiving yards. They're doing a nice job spreading him out. They're putting him out wide. He's getting some nice catches, which are a huge value in this DFS format. $6,700, I think, is a good matchup against a Buffalo team that gives up the most yards to opposing running backs through the air. We mentioned the Bears-Cardinals game. I think we all think this could be a little bit higher scoring. DeAndre Swift at $6,400, not a bad value there. But then two I want to point out, both on the Commanders, Brian Robinson Jr. getting the Giants on a short week, $6,300. We saw them give up a monster game to Najee Harris. He's a similar type runner. And also Austin Eckler, $5,300, rushing, receiving, like kind of added value below cost. I think if you're looking to save money, I think he is a decent option as well. And Tyrone Tracy Jr., depending on his status, we know he got nicked up last night if he's going to play. But he's been good for the Giants, $5,500.
I like what you said. My number 2 guy is Brian Robinson. This Giants run defense is terrible.
Yep.
Jaden's still going to be, he's going to play, but he's not 100%. And so you got to think the Commanders on the road are going to lean on the running game.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like from the running backs?
Well, Cheah, we apparently are on the same wavelength this week because I have Achane as my number 1 as well. The way you beat Buffalo is on the ground. You don't do it on the outside. You do it up the middle. And just Achane, he's so electric. I mean, he's one of the most exciting running backs in the league. They throw him the football. He's definitely going to be in my lineup. And then the number 2 guy that I'm going with this week is Chase Brown. He's become the pretty clear lead back there in Cincinnati. They get a bad Raiders team. I think in the second half, Cincinnati will be up, and they're going to be running the football with Chase Brown. He had a touchdown last week, his first rushing touchdown of the season, by the way. I think he gets another one this week against Las Vegas, and at $5,900, I think he's one of the better values on the board because there's not a lot of bargain guys this week at the running back position, so you have to kind of spend in that $6,000 range, I think, to feel safe. I like Chase Brown as my number 2.
Okay. Yeah, I can get down with that. All right, receiver market, $8,800. CD Lamb, obviously highest scoring game, or highest projected total game of the week. $8,800 CD Lamb. Then we got Jamar Chase, $8,600. Falls off quite a bit after that. We got AJ Brown, $8,100. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown in a big divisional game, $75. Cooper Kupp, $77. Malik Neighbors, $75. Tyreek Hill, $7,300. Then it falls up kind of sequentially after that by hundreds. You can get all the way down. We're in the Jake Bobo, $3,400 territory. Devon Vale, $3,600 territory. Where do you see some value here? Mintzy, who do you like?
I got a few good value guys. It's an interesting thing. I can't wait to hear Moody's philosophy because we were discussing it off the air, and I think he's going with the wild receiver strategy. All right, few value guys I got. Jalen Waddle, $5,500. The Bills, if you look up Tyreek Hill stats against the Bills, they bracket him, and he never does anything against Buffalo, which opens it for Waddle and Achane. And so Waddle's had some good games against Buffalo. Tyreek Hill's a fade against the Bills. I mean, his stats, he hadn't had over, it's like 7 or 8 games in a row he's at 80 yards or less. Yep. So with that, Waddle, $5,500 has value at Tua. Some other values cheap-wise, I know he had a big game last week, but because it's a full-point PPR, Ladd McConkey at $5,600 has value because he catches a lot of balls. I mean, obviously he got in the end zone a couple times Sunday, but I like his value. Jerry Jeudy, $5,100 with Jameis, I think is a value. They were kind of spreading it out, but I think, I feel like he's got some value too. So I'm looking at some of those guys as my value hunts.
All right. Moody, who do you like from the receiver market?
Well, I do like CD Lamb, but $8,800 is so expensive. So I may go a little bit cheaper and go with A.J. Brown as my number 1 guy. Jacksonville just gives it up left and right to opposing wide receivers. A.J. Brown has really come back into form the last couple weeks. He was down, obviously dealt with an injury. He seems to be back, had a touchdown last week. I think he's going to absolutely light up Jacksonville. Or you could go with Devontae Smith, who is, almost $2,000 cheaper at $6,800. So I haven't decided between which way I'm going to go. Is it going to be CD and Devontae Smith, or am I just going to go with A.J. Brown? But then the other 2 guys that I like from the receiver position as far as value is concerned is Rome Odunze against Arizona. If Caleb Williams is going to light it up, you have to have a receiver out there. I think he's going to be the value play. And then the other guy I like, we talked about Bo Nix earlier. It's Devon Vale, $3,600. I think that playing from behind in that game. Denver's going to be playing from behind in that game, and they're going to need to throw the football a lot. And Vele had a 9-catch game earlier this season. I think he could have another one against the Ravens. I'm looking for 8 catches, 60 yards, and a score from Devon Vele at 3,600. That would make my lineup superior. That's what I'm probably doing as far as my value play.
I think you and I are on very similar wavelengths today, because I also like AJ Brown. I mean, he's expensive, $8,100, so it's hard to not like AJ Brown. If we're value shopping, there are a couple guys that come to mind. I actually went Keenan Allen as opposed to Rome Odunze, $5,500, so he's like slightly below cost there. We got to talk about Cedric Tillman, who had a tremendous game last week against Baltimore. He's now valued at $4,300, which is not bad. Another guy I want to look at is Trey Tucker on the Raiders. He's been getting more looks lately. He's an explosive weapon. $4,300 at value. You can certainly do a lot worse. And then I also went to the Denver receiving core. I didn't go Vele, but Troy Franklin, Bo Nix's college teammate at Oregon, $4,000. He's been coming on lately as well. I think both of these guys are both very good. And reading up a bit on Vele versus Franklin, Vele thrives against zone coverage, which Baltimore does play quite a bit of. So take a look at that. So certainly a good option for Moody.
Good value hunting, boys.
Yeah. I think, obviously, we can get down to, bottom of the barrel running backs. We're looking at, $5,000 really. Bottom of the barrel receivers, $4,000. So,
yeah.
Obviously, there's more of them. I think spending premium money on running backs is, based on how things are priced right now, I think that is the better move. Obviously, it's going to be matchup dependent. There are going to be certain guys who are, going to be hot certain weeks. But I think that you can get better value with the running backs. All right, let's talk about tight ends. Brock Bowers, top of the market again, $6,000. Trey McBride, $5,800. David Njoku, obviously we saw emerge last week with Jameis, $5,500. Evan Ingram, $53,000. Jake Ferguson, $51,000. Dalton Kincaid, $5,000. It falls off by hundreds after that. You can go all the way down to Jatavian Sanders, $2,900. Mintzy, who stands out to you from the tight ends?
I mean, this is the easiest decision of the day, and it's Taysom Hill at $3,800 against the just god-awful Carolina team. Taysom was back in there, like, huge part of the offense, getting carries, catching the ball, and Carolina's I feel like you've got the immovable force against the whatever object, the Saints offense against the Panthers defense with the struggles, but I just feel like Taysom's going to get fed here. He's going to get in the end zone, and $3,800, I mean, that's like I know we're going to get the plant my flag guy, but the value's way too good here.
Totally fair. Moody, who do you like in the tight end market?
Well, I love Taysom Hill as well. I think for the amount you're spending right there, the extra touches that he gets, Taysom Hill is number one on my board as well. But I'm also going to throw Cole Kmet out there at $4,400. I already talked about Caleb Williams multiple times, and I'm basically thinking about a stack with Odunze, Williams, and Kmet. Kmet's probably going to end up being in my flex at $4,400. Obviously, he's been very inconsistent this year, but when he pops, he pops. And I'm thinking there's a pretty good chance for him to get a touchdown against an Arizona defense that does not do good against receivers or tight ends, but they really do struggle against tight ends. I like Cole Kmet at $4,400, and then I do think Taysom Hill is the number one play at the tight end position.
Yeah, a couple guys I would look at. Obviously, David Njoku. He's getting a Chargers defense that's top 10 in yards allowed to opposing tight ends, but also just doing some math. So we saw Brian Thomas Jr. get hurt on Sunday. We also saw Christian Kirk get hurt. Gabe Davis, looks like, it's early. We're taping this Tuesday morning. Is questionable for this upcoming week. Evan Ingram is really the only viable pass-catching solution. He's $5,300, which is, the fourth most expensive tight end. I don't hate spending money there. It's still, below cost at average cost per player. So I think Evan Ingram is certainly worth a look because they just really don't have anybody else.
There could be some points in that game too. I mean, I guess Brian Thomas is good, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, Brian Thomas hurt.
Oh yeah, I knew that.
All right, defense, special teams. So, you know who the most expensive defense special team is this week? Your New Orleans Saints, $3,800.
That's how bad Carolina is.
Yeah. We'll see who's starting at quarterback for Carolina. If it's going to be Andy Dalton or Bryce Young. Andy Dalton obviously involved in that car wreck.
If Dalton goes, Carolina +7's value all over the place. Saints can't be laying 7 on the road. Carr might be back this week, though.
Yep. All right, so Saints $3,800. We got Bengals against the Raiders $3,700. Lions going against an unknown quarterback. It's going to be Malik Willis. So Jordan Love $3,600. Ravens $3,500. Commanders $3,400. We go all the way down to Jaguars going against Philly $2,300. Mintzy, who do you got?
Between the Ravens, again, I know Knicks has been playing well, but Denver, like, all their wins are against the worst teams, and I feel like at Baltimore could be some Knicks turnovers, even with their pass D looking bad. And then I'm also looking at the Chargers, even though they're on the road against Cleveland. Just Jameis will probably turn it over, and the Chargers have a really good defense. The two I'm looking at.
Moody, who do you got for defense special teams this week?
Well, the Chargers are my number one defense. It would be so classic Jameis to have a monster week and then throw 3 interceptions the next week. Like, that's Jameis Winston in a nutshell. I would not be surprised to see him struggle against the Chargers defense. That's been really good this entire season. They're very consistent week to week. I like the Chargers at 3,300. And then there's a chance that I just take the very bottom of the barrel and take one of these teams like the Dolphins at 2,500 and just hope that they return a punt or something. You know, like, because I'm trying to save money. I like my lineup outside of my defense, and I may just go with the Dolphins at 2,500 or one of those bottom of the barrel teams just for the sake of saving money and hoping they return a kick or something.
Well, let me give you a couple options here because I also like kind of bottom of the barrel guys for this week if you are looking to save a quick penny. The lowest total of the week by far is New England at Tennessee, 37.5. Right now, we got the Titans priced out at 3,200. We got the Patriots at 3,000. I don't hate the Patriots in this game. Coming off, obviously, a nice win against the Jets. But either of those teams, not the worst options below cost. If you want to go super bargain shopping, I can sell you a narrative. Doug Peterson revenge game against the Eagles.
Ooh.
Jaguars, $2,300. Cheapest defense on the board. The Eagles certainly looked good last week against the Bengals. That being said, if you look at their year as a whole, they've been a mess. They have not scored still in the first quarter of any game this year. This could get a little interesting. I think Doug Peterson's going to pull out a lot of tricks this week, obviously trying to beat his old bosses. So $2,300, I think you could do worse, and that is the cheapest defense on the board. So if you're looking to, go, like Moody said, spend money elsewhere and kind of hope for, a miracle turnover, I think you can do worse than the Jaguars this week.
I like y'all's theory there, just specifically as we talked about A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb being so expensive. But if you want to have to get one of those guys, then you got to freaking do some hunting and defense and, and tight end and some of those cheaper receivers.
There's a $1,500 difference between the most expensive defense and the least expensive. And those, those are tough because, one defensive score kind of gives you, but a lot of what this is holding the team to not that many points. The Eagles have been so inconsistent, and if you get essentially a free first quarter with no points, they haven't scored a point in the first quarter all year, potentially worth a look. All right, let's go to our Plant Your Flag guy of the week. Mintzy, you alluded to it before, but who are you riding and dying with this week?
I mean, it's Taysom Hill. Like I mentioned it already, but Carolina's defense stinks. Taysom's going to, he's getting a lot of carries. He's going to be a huge part of the Saints' game plan, and I think he finds the end zone. And I may bet some of his TD props this week as well. 3,800 is just too good a value.
Okay. All right, Moody, who are you going with Plant Your Flag guy of the week?
It was going to be Taysom Hill for me as well. I just think that this is the kind of spot where he shows up, scores a couple touchdowns, and you're incredibly happy you have him in your lineup. So I do like Taysom Hill. And then outside of that, I think I'm going to go with A.J. Brown. I know you just said that, like, Doug Peterson's going to pull out all the stops. I don't know that he's got enough in his bag to slow down A.J. Brown. I think the Eagles' offense is turning the corner, and I think one of the reasons is the reemergence of A.J. Brown post-injury. I think he's going to have a monster week. I expect 100-plus yards. I'm hoping for 2 touchdowns if I'm going to spend $8,100 on him. I like A.J. Brown and Taysom Hill as 2 of my favorite plays this week.
So I've been absolutely on fire with Plant Your Flag guy of the week. 3 weeks ago, Demario Douglas has a monster game, 94 yards and a touchdown. 2 weeks ago, we got Jatavion Sanders, who had a very nice game. This past week, Cade Otton, probably my best one yet. It was the top tight end in the market. 2 touchdowns. I think he had like 86 yards. Very nice game from those guys. My guy this week isn't as under the radar as those three guys. We're going to Devon Achane. And Moody alluded to it earlier. That's the way you beat Buffalo. They're going to play 2 high safeties, but they give up so many catches to running backs, and nobody, small sample size because we've only seen 2.5 games. But when Tua is in, he is looking to throw the ball to Devon Achane on design screens, on actual routes, on drag routes, on wheel routes up the sideline. So give me Devon Achane against the Bills. I think he is their only real hope to win this game, and I think they're going to ride him. And worst case scenario, if Buffalo gets ahead by a lot, they're going to be throwing to him even more. So Devon Achane at $6,700, which I realize is above cost, but still a decent value for running backs. He is my plant your flag guy of Week 9.
Let's go, boys.
All right. That is the show. Thank you guys. King of the South, Mintzy, Moody on the sticks. I'm Stephen Cheah. Let's see each other in the winner's circle this weekend, huh?
Let's do it. Let's get that money. Join us in the Pardon My Take AWL League.
Yes. Pardon my take, AWL League. We're all in there every Sunday. So we'll see you there. Later, guys.